is Superior Sports Talk with Reggie Wilson and Luke Inman, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota, and it starts now.
Back in the lab, Reggie and Luke back at it. Another episode of Superior Sports Talk presented by Locked On Sports Minnesota. What's happening, Reggie? Happy Hump Day. How you feeling?
Man, Hump Day. These weeks and days just fly by. Goodness gracious. It's crazy that it's already Wednesday. Yikes.
Summer's basically over, Reggie. Start getting your winter coat. All right,
no.
All right, we got another big show lined up talking about which player the Twins could go out and trade for before the deadline and which Vikings UDFA has a chance to become the next Adam Thielen. Plus, later, I'm putting Reggie on the hot seat with what does it mean. It's all coming up on Superior Sports Talk. But first, save time and money when using Rock Auto. Rock Auto is a family-served business serving do-it-yourselfers like Reggie and I for over 20 years. Reliably low prices for every customer, brake parts, tail lamps, even new carpet for your vehicle. Go to rockauto.com today and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us section so they know we sent you. That's rockauto.com. All right, let's talk about those Twins, shall we? Quick recap. Last night, Twins lose 5-0. This was the first time I got to sit down and really watch Mariners' young stud Logan Gilbert on the mound. He better be careful because he keeps pitching like this. He's going to find himself in the All-Star game in just under a month. Holds the Twins to 6 shutout innings, 6 Ks, 4 hits allowed. Seattle relievers come in. They do the rest. Don't allow a single Twins hit the rest of the way. Twins had their chances, though. Twins had Gilbert in a jam early on. Buxton and Correa on first and second. No outs. Kepler hits into a double play. Urshela flies out to right. Very next pitch. Twins go 0 for 5 with runners in scoring position. In fact, came from 2 batters only. Kepler was 0 for 3 and Urshela was 0 for 2 with runners in scoring position. Joe Ryan's first start after missing 3 weeks on the COVID list. Not a bad first start for Joe. A little rust to be knocked off, which is to be expected. He goes 4 2/3, allows 5 hits, 4 earned, 3 Ks, 2 bomb shots. He gets yanked 74 pitches. Twins looking to still come away with the series, though, tonight. Reggie, your quick thoughts on last night's performance.
Man, so much was said, especially by us, about how the Twins just managed to really fare out well without their ace, Joe Ryan, without Sonny Gray. And, I made a I made a comparison last night on Care 11 that, the Twins starting pitching was comparable to when your job makes a bunch of hires while you're on vacation and you come back and you look around, you're like, who is that? You're like whispering, you don't want them to hear you. Who is that? Who is that? When did they get here? Like, Reggie, you've been gone, man. You've been on vacation. We hired him like
Jerry,
2 weeks
man.
ago.
He's up an accountant, man.
Yeah, he's great. He's good people. I already went to lunch with him. Like, we good now. And any given day you're like Chichi Gonzalez. Okay. All right, we'll see what he could do. Let's just see what happens. Cole Sands. Okay. All right, let's see what happens.
All right.
And finally, they get Joe Ryan back, and maybe in the first start, you maybe have too high of expectations. The guy's coming back from COVID. He only pitched 3 innings in his rehab start. I mean, he looked good, but it was AAA. I mean, you expect him to dominate against AAA talent, but then he comes out. And, he has 3 strong innings, and you're like, okay, all right, Joe Ryan is back, baby. Oh, yeah. And then Eugenio Suarez is like, welcome back, Joe. Welcome. 2-run blast. Then he gives up another 2-run blast while I was talking about him in my sportscast last night. Look at my phone. I'm like, oh, he gave up another one. Oh. And, then he gets pulled. Maybe a little fatigue, maybe just him working himself back into rhythm because, he was in a really good rhythm. A season high 4 earned runs given up. You don't really expect that from him, considering what we've seen out of him this season. And, maybe you give them a mulligan. You're just like, all right, just throw that one out. It's okay. You had to find your way back, work your way back into a rhythm. You don't expect that to be the case, especially two-run shots. You're just like, that's not Joe Ryan. That's not who we see, who we know. This year at 2.28 ERA coming into the game, you're like, We'll give him a pass. We've seen enough from Joe to think that this is not something that's going to stick for him. Maybe this is an outlier. But it is just a little discouraging because so much was said like, oh, man, look, they survived the gauntlet, and then they got Joe back. Oh, man, Joe is back. Watch out now. And it's just like, well, maybe just wait another start. Wait another start for that. So then, Sonny Gray comes back tonight. Pec injury. He missed some time a couple times this season with some injuries, and maybe you're like, okay, we'll see what Sonny has, comes out and pitches against the Mariners as they try to take the series, and you just like, let's see what happens with Sonny. I'm not really sure what to think after what happened with Joe last night, but, it's always sunny in Seattle. No, it's not. It's always rainy in Seattle. But when Sonny's on the mound, it's always sunny. Yeah. And so you just kind of see what happens tonight.
A good reminder, maybe fans should temper their expectations now for Sonny Gray tonight as he comes back from the IL. Other news, ESPN's latest article highlights which playoff teams will make the strongest push and be most aggressive for more help before the trade deadline. New York Yankees are at the top of the list, noting their World Series or bust approach they're taking this year. And they could go get more reliever depth among other positions. Twins were on the list, albeit near the bottom of playoff teams. Article noted how much bigger of a lead in the Central they should have had it not been decimated by injuries. However, if and when they can get fully healthy, they have a decent shot at winning the division when it's all said and done. Getting healthier, plugging a few holes like another reliable high-leverage reliever or two is at the top of the list. Reggie, we talked about this for a few weeks now, but that was back when, they had a bigger cushion. It didn't feel like as big of a pressing need because all the Twins were doing was winning. So now their lead's shrinking. They got 8 games coming up with the Guardians. The pressure's starting to tighten up here to get hot again, to go on a little run here again. What are the chances they're still in a position to make a deal before the trade deadline in a few weeks? And how aggressive do you think they should be?
I think they'll be in great position to make a deal at the deadline because what we've seen from the Twins is you can't figure these guys out. Like just when you think you have them figured out and you know what to expect from them, you're just like, oh man, here we go. They surprise you and they're just like, oh no, like we're here, like we're going to compete. And so it's going to be interesting when they do play the Guardians because they are the team that is directly behind them, which means like they can't give up much ground. And if they do, it almost puts them in a position where they're more desperate to try to find some other arms to help out that situation because they don't want to fall behind the Guardians too much. Just because like this was a season that we thought would be the White Sox at the top and the Twins are jockeying for position, hoping to get second place behind them. And now you're talking about a team that's in first place with a Guardians team that really wasn't on a whole lot of people's radar this season coming into it. And you're just like, well, like if they are going to compete, against the Guardians, no less, like they're going to need to have the best complement of arms that they can get. And so the issue though with that, Luke, is who do you give up?
Right.
You have so much like upside with so many guys. You're just like, we've seen Jermaine Palacios get called up and do well. We've seen Jose Miranda get hot. Right now, not a whole lot of people are talking about it, but Kirilloff down in St. Paul right now, he's raking.
Yeah.
He is raking. Yep. And you're just like, okay, all right. Then Garlick, when he comes back, and then you got Larnick, from time to time, he's raking. Like, they have a situation here because now you're talking about, all right, well, do we give up a lower level prospect maybe if it's a pitcher, you're like, man, I don't know if we can afford to give up another pitcher to get some pitching. They made that swing already this season, and a lot of people are still kind of up in arms about it, which was getting Chris Paddock for Rodgers. Mm-hmm. And now we see what happened with Paddock, and you're just like, man, see, that's why you got to hold on to these pitchers when you can. And, like Taylor Rodgers would make very much a difference for this bullpen right now with how it currently stands. Last night the bullpen wasn't an issue. Really, the last 2 nights, the bullpen haven't been an issue, but we have seen it rear an ugly head several times this season. So if you find yourself in a position where you can go get a solid reliever that can help anchor that bullpen staff, you got to go do it. But my question is, who do you part with? Because everybody right now just seems so precious.
Yeah, you're right. They got a handful of just young, budding talent right now that when they get called up, they flash a little bit here or there. Mm-hmm. Are you ready to part ways with all that? Do you want to go even younger in the prospect? Well, Austin Martin, the catcher, remember, we got him from the Blue Jays with the Jose Barrios deal. It's just tough anytime you're parting with some of this young, budding talent that we've seen, not just in Minnesota Twins history, but Minnesota history, giving up some young talent and watching them flourish. It's a tough pill to swallow for sure for fans. Twins still looking to win the series tonight, with Sonny Gray making his first appearance since hitting the IL a few weeks ago. A rare afternoon game, first pitch 3:10 p.m. today. Rest assured, Reggie and I will be here tomorrow to break it all down. Okay, coming up, we're talking which Vikings UDFA could turn into the next Adam Thielen. And later, I'm putting Reggie on the hot seat with what does it mean. But first, our partners at BetOnline continue to be your number one source for all your betting needs. Find all the latest odds, news, and sports info, including this year's basketball finals, Major League Baseball, fights, and even NFL futures. Head to the website today to use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and actions. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. All right, well, we're 2 months away from NFL football when week 1 of the preseason kicks off. And as training camp gets closer and closer, I'm starting to think about which guys are kind of flying under the radar a little bit, because this time of year, every season, there's always a name or two you never expected to end up sticking to the team, a guy who didn't have the maybe high draft pick label or the flashy numbers or play at the big program. We all know the story of Adam Thielen, local legend, walks on as a UDFA in training camp on his own college turf when they held training camp in Mankato, Minnesota. All he does, goes on to become one of the best receivers and stories in Vikings history, and he ain't done yet. So I'm not asking for the next Adam Thielen. That's like once in a decade scenario, maybe at most. But I'll start here. One guy I'm telling you to start circling right now on the roster. How about Luiji Vilain? The more I got to study this guy, the more I got excited. You're talking about a 4-star recruit coming out of Virginia. He signs with the Michigan Wolverines as a big-time get. I mean, a lot of excitement, high hopes for him there. But he never really saw the field there much, didn't pan out in Ann Arbor. And it makes sense, too, when you think about this, because look at the pipeline of talent Jim Harbaugh had on his D-line the past few years. Kwity Paye, 21st overall pick to the Colts. Aiden Hutchinson, maybe you've heard of him, number 2 overall pick. Rashawn Gary, 12th overall pick. Even David Ajabo, who would have been a first-round pick had he not torn his ACL during the pre-draft process. So there's only so many snaps to go around, mixed with a few lingering injuries. He kind of fell to the bottom of the depth chart, never was able to climb out of it. Takes his talents to Wake Forest and just goes off. 10 tackles for loss, 9 sacks, 34 pressures, 2 forced fumbles. Dude was legit. And I don't want to hear that, oh, yeah, but he dropped in talent. I mean, he goes from Michigan to Wake Forest. We're still talking about the ACC. I mean, he's getting after guys like Sam Howell and Kenny Pickett. He's going up against other future NFL linemen. So I don't want to hear that. He played multiple spots, left side, right side, little 5 tech. Saw him stand up a little bit. He's only 6'3", but he showed a great punch on tape, uses his hands well. When you look at the Vikings defense front 7 depth chart and just ask yourself, all right, who's going to just stand up and just rush the passer? Obviously, za'darius is that guy. And Daniil will be in the mix too, but it sounds like I think Hunter may be moved around a lot this year as kind of a chess piece. So finding another guy or two just to stand on the edge and pass rush is something Ed Donatel and Mike Smith are going to have to be looking at in training camp. DJ Wanham, probably the next guy in line, but not a proven guy in this new defense. Patrick Robinson, he's got a chance for sure. But then you get to Vilain, and I think he's got a real chance to make an early impression early in camp and find a way to stick on this 53-man roster. When it's all said and done, it happens every year. Teams all find a UDFA or two that flashes enough, shows the tools for coaches to work with. 4-star recruit, just got buried on that all-star D-line at Michigan, but make no mistake, it wasn't from a lack of talent. When he finally got into the lineup at Wake Forrest, again, he balled out. Luiji Vilain, he's a guy I really like if you're making me pick. Just a UDFA that has a real chance of making the team, or at least minimum the practice squad, to give coaches a nice developmental edge rusher in the mix you can develop and progress kind of in the background, right, behind the scenes. And that's important too because remember, za'darius is 31. Hunter hasn't proven he can stay healthy. If they go down, you better have another guy or two ready to step in and hold his own. And as a GM and coach, I mean, you always have to be looking at not just this year, but a year or two ahead as well. And given the structure of that za'darius contract, may turn out to be only kind of a 1-year rental deal when it's all said and done, despite those big, gaudy numbers. So who's another UDFA who you think maybe has the right tools for coaches to see enough and develop into a contributor for the Vikings someday down the road in your eyes?
Well, it's funny because you talked about who could be the next Adam Thielen, and this receiver room is stacked. And, you know, you're talking about guys that are, I mean, look, JJ,
Yep.
Thielen,
Yep.
KJ, and then now you're talking about maybe BC Johnson. You're talking about Jalen Naylor.
Albert Wilson.
They signed Albert Wilson.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, he's probably going to make an impact too on maybe like punt returns or something like that. And I think, you know, here are some names. I was looking at some stuff. And when you look at, I didn't even mention Amir Smith-Marset either. You know, he's going to be a guy for them. He was key down the stretch last year with some of those injuries, especially to Thielen down the stretch. You know, you look at guys like Thomas Hennigan. He was a UDFA that, you know, could provide some spark or at least make the practice squad. And then I know you were talking to me a little bit before we started the podcast today about Tristan Jackson, who was taking some reps with Smith-Marset out, you know, in that walking boot the last few weeks of minicamp. And so Jackson is getting some of the reps. Former Ram, you know, O'Connell has a little bit of a history knowing this guy already. He was signed to the practice squad last season, and he was taking some of the reps. And that is a good chance for a guy to just kind of show and prove. I know it's mini camp, so, you know, not really like taking hits and, you know, not really doing the full scope of what you would do in training camp. But that was a way for him to kind of shine a little bit and show his ability and what he can do to contribute to this team. We don't know how many receivers the Vikings are going to keep. And it's tough to talk about a guy making the 53-man roster at a position that is already so stacked with guys who have proven it at this level before. But why not him, right? Why not?
First, you got to say, okay, well, how many receivers are they going to keep? A lot of teams keep 5, but not unheard of to keep 6 or even 7 for sure, especially in a Kevin O'Connell, Wes Phillips, pass-happy offense. That's certainly probability that could happen. But you also mentioned, all right, I know it's just mini camp. I mean, the pads aren't popping yet, but it still matters because it tells you what coaches are thinking and where they have these players ranked and lined up right now. And Tristan Jackson and Olabisi Johnson with those other big names, KJ Osborne, Amir Smith-Marset out, that tells you something. I mean, that tells you right now that they're higher on the depth chart than some of those other guys. So we'll see how it unfolds and transitions into training camp. We'll see if they stay in that same mix. We'll see how long it takes Albert Wilson to kind of chew up the playbook and develop into that 4th or 5th guy. We'll see if Amir Smith-Marset is healthy by the time training camp rolls around, and if not, who's in that place. But you're right, I like that call out. Tristan Jackson, again, taking first-team reps with Olabisi. It tells you something, maybe not the whole story, but certainly a little indicator just to mark on your roster, a depth chart, just to keep in the back of your mind. Loaded wide receiver room, though, for sure. Something I'll be keeping a close eye on for sure as we get closer to kickoff of training camp. Just 5 weeks away, taking place at TCO facilities in Eagan. Guys resting up right now, enjoying that last little bit of free time they have before clocking into the 2022 season just around the corner. All right, time has come. My favorite segments here. I'm putting Reggie on the hot seat with What Does It Mean, covering all the latest hot topics in Minnesota sports. First up, Game 1 of the Stanley Cup kicks off tonight as the Lightning and Avalanche square off in Colorado. Plenty of storylines and intriguing observations heading into the finals matchup, including, of course, the Lightning looking for their third Stanley Cup win in a row. What does it mean when it comes to what you're most excited about in this final postseason matchup of the 2022 NHL season?
It's like the best against the best, right?
That's what you want.
That's exactly what you want. And what's funny is, for lack of a better phrase here, the Lightning kind of hit the Rangers with an avalanche after they looked cooked really to start that series. And all of a sudden the Lightning was just like, oh yeah, we've been here before. It's okay. We'll handle business. And they just went on and surged and just like we talked about it. They whooped that trick. And it was just interesting, like seeing it happen in real time. It was just like, whoa, like this is some, on one end you're just like, this is some epic lemon booty by the Rangers right here. But then you're just like, oh, well, I mean, the Lightning are heart of a champion. Going for 3 straight. What a dominant team this Lightning team has been. That being said, once I saw the Avalanche in their first playoff series, I was just like, yeah.
Yeah, nobody.
It's over. And so, okay, Vasi was thought to be like just this all-world goaltender, right? And he is very great. But he showed a little bit in the last couple of series like, oh, man. Well, especially this last series early on, it was just like, oh, man, he is human.
You can get after
They
him.
can get to him. And the Avalanche have done such a great job of just scoring goals ad nauseum. Like some of the highest scoring playoff games that we've had, they've been involved in this postseason. And so you're just like, oh. And they're going to be coming after the Lightning strong. That being said, like you can't underestimate Tampa Bay because, like I said, they are the reigning champions and they have been there before. 2 straight seasons they've been there, and you're just like, okay, all right, you don't want to count them out per se, but I've said like long ago, like when I saw the Avalanche, I was like, this team is winning the cup. And I kind of stick by that because this team has been one of the most dominant throughout the whole postseason. And really the season in general, they had a great regular season. And I was hoping for the Wild, man. And I was just like, woo, like they get past the Blues, like it's going to be rough for the Wild against the Avalanche. And they didn't get past the Blues, but then the Avalanche whooped up on the Blues. Then they whooped up on Edmonton. You're just like, okay, yeah, who's next? And look, like I said, all respect to the champs, but I just can't see it. The Avalanche are just too strong.
Remember those last few weeks going into the playoffs, end of the season? It was always Wild of the Blues, 2 of the 3 seed, 2 of the 3 seed, scratch and claw, and every game matters. You kind of forgot about, like, yeah, we don't even talk about the number 1 seed because the Avalanche are so high up. They were so clear and above, better than everybody else, not only in this conference, but the entire NHL. It's no secret. It's no surprise. They clearly are. I think you put a gun to a lot of people's heads and you say, yeah, Avalanche are the best team. Lightning, though, it's just like, man, 3rd time in a row. Maybe there's something about being on the big stage that you just can't put a price on the experience of these guys being on that stage for the first time. There's just this but when you talk about the Avalanche are the better team. So it's going to be a great matchup. Game 1 tonight. Can't wait. 7 p.m. Puck drops. ABC. We'll be back here tomorrow for sure to follow up with that one. Next one up, what does it mean? ESPN's biggest mini camp storylines across the NFL included both Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson, both of whom are looking for new contract extensions coming off those rookie deals. Between the two, What does it mean when it comes to which player is more pivotal for their team's overall success? I mean, which team has more pressure on them to lock up their franchise signal caller for the long term sooner rather than later?
So when I look at this, only one of the two has been a league MVP.
Mm-hmm.
To me, is Lamar Jackson, like without a doubt. When they don't have him, I mean, God bless Tyler Huntley. You know what I mean? He filled in as well as you can possibly imagine, right? That being said, like both of these guys are pivotal to their teams, like because without them, those teams are coleslaw, you know? Like they're not going places. But Lamar, I think, is more pivotal to his team just because like we've seen what he can do in this league when he is on. And for me, this is really puzzling. I think both of these guys have things to prove as far as like them getting their teams to the next level. I think Kyler has way more to prove than Lamar Jackson does. But it's just so interesting if these are guys that you are hitching your wagons to. You know, the Ravens ripped up the whole playbook a few years ago and decided they were going to play to Lamar's strengths and really build the offense around him. If you're going to do that, keep that same energy when it's time to pay him.
Right.
Like, it is the most, like, puzzling thing when you think about it because you're just like, is this dude not producing for you? And then you go out and you trade his top receiver to Kyler Murray and the Cardinals and Hollywood Brown, and you're just like, all right, we know Lamar loves to throw to his tight ends, but who else do you expect him to throw to? Didn't really give him a whole lot of help this offseason, but they're expecting to be better. They're expecting to compete with the Bengals and the Browns and the Steelers, I guess, in that division to be like lead dog. And you're just like, well, Lamar needs some more weapons. And I do understand, all those running backs who got hurt last year are going to be back this year. And, maybe they try to establish themselves as more of a running football team with Lamar's legs and with all the complement of running backs that they have, Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, and those guys. But you're just like, okay, what are we doing here? What, like, the money is green, ain't it? Pay these dudes. And really, honestly, too, looking at it from the Cardinals' perspective, Kyler Murray has no excuses. Like, none whatsoever. This dude has so many weapons out there. They lose Kirk, but they gain Hollywood. He has something to prove. Kyler Murray, like, by far, has the most to prove out of, I think, any quarterback in the league this year with what they've set up around him, what he's demanding from the team, which is a new contract because he believes he's worth it. And he is a dynamic player out there, but the proof is in the pudding, young man. It's time for you to get out there and will this team not only to the playoffs, but to some meaningful playoff wins to justify what you are hoping to get.
I think a case can be made for either one for sure, but you said it, MVP, most valuable player. You take each one of these guys out of their offense, out of their team. Heck, Colt McCoy jumped in for Kyler Murray last year, and it's like, man, Cardinals, they're not bad. I mean, under Colt McCoy, it's like they didn't really skip a beat that much. I expected a big drop-off, and it's like, all right, Colt McCoy can hang still a little bit. All right, I'm not seeing that much of a drop-off. You take Lamar out, and like you said, Tyler Huntley, God bless you, sir, but you're no Lamar Jackson. It's just one of these things, too, that's puzzling, as you said. It's the most important position in all of sports, pitcher being second. Look at the contracts these other quarterbacks are getting paid. I mean, you can't be surprised or shocked if you're the GM or front office that, you're going to have to pay him a boatload of money, and guess what? You get out of it what you put into it. You're getting Lamar Jackson. Some of these GMs or front offices have a little bit of hard time swallowing that tough pill that, man, we got to make him, the highest paid player in the league right now? Yeah, it's only for now. Remember when Kirk Cousins signed that 3-year, $90 million all guaranteed money and everybody lost their minds. 2-3 years from that, he was like ranked 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. That's what you have to do. It's just part of the process. You don't want to start to penny pinch and get cheap when it comes time to paying your franchise face of the franchise quarterback. Come on.
Let's do it.
And I also fully expect, by the way, Cliff Kingsbury was quoted by saying, I'm praying we get a deal done before training camp with Kyler Murray. I still fully expect both these guys to get deals done before training camp. Last thing you want, especially if you got a Super Bowl on your mind, if you're a team that's ready and poised to go deep into the playoffs like the Ravens are ready to do, last thing you want is this black cloud going into training camp about an off-the-field issue like not paying your, again, face of the franchise, Lamar Jackson. Figure it out. I fully expect that deal to get done over these next few weeks for sure. That's a wrap. Back here tomorrow, same time, same place, breaking down more Twins, Vikings, plenty more. Remember to like, rate, review, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Join us every day for another episode covering all the biggest topics in Minnesota sports. He's Reggie Wilson. Follow him on Twitter at Reggie Wilson TV and on KARE11. I'm Luke Inman on Twitter at Luke_Spinman. Tune in tomorrow to Superior Sports Talk, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota. For Reggie, I'm Luke. Until tomorrow, signing out.
Be blessed. Spread love today.
This is Superior Sports Talk with Reggie Wilson and Luke Inman, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota.